I'd like to call this session of the Board of Revision to order and begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and the traditional lands of the Ojibwe, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 41st Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Harvey Diamond. I'm chairing this hearing today. With me today, as my co-panelists, are Michelle Duncan and Ian Mann. The city assistant department is represented by Sharon Tang, and Matthew Barakis is with her. And our administrative assistant is Nicole Carnegie. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rules in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision have been requested are described in each application, and we will be limiting discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing must be sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to a matter must be first sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered as evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. We make our decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing, and will issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or to classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to an application for exemption from taxation. And should you wish to appeal, information how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following their swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by any questions. And each side will be given an opportunity if they wish to summarize. Once all the evidence upon an application is brought forward, the applicant may leave. The person will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and render its decisions. You receive the board's decision by receipt of mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be forming part of a public record. Today we'll be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket. And Ms. Carney can swear in the assessor and the applicant, please, at this time.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Assessor, please state your full name. Oh, sorry, we are just on mute.
Sharon Tang.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Mr. Barakis, please state your full name.
Matthew Barakis.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. DuPont, please state your full name.
Henry DuPont.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're ready to begin now. I just have a preliminary matter to address. I understand that some of the material, Mr. DuPont, that you filed was filed late. And we have to consider whether we're going to allow that material. And if you have anything to say about it before we do deliberate to make that determination, I'll let you do that now.
Has there been a complaint filed by anybody?
The complaint has not been filed. We have certain requirements, and we have to discuss whether we're going to adhere to them or make an exception. And that's why I'm asking you if you have anything you want to say with regard to you want us to consider before we do that. You have the opportunity to do that now, Mr. DuPont.
Okay. The municipal board has ruled on this. They have similar rule where they may disallow evidence that is given late. Assessors used to ask that our evidence be thrown out because it would be an easy victory for them. The municipal board ruled many times that they would never throw out the evidence of the applicant. That the assessor thought they did not have enough time, they would postpone the hearing in order to give the assessor more time to look at the report. Because the penalty is very harsh for being late, and therefore they've always avoided that because it was too harsh. It's the same thing with police. They give warnings. Have judges, they exercise discretion. They will make the penalty fit the crime. I filed 4 reports on time. I filed 2 reports, I believe, at 8 o'clock that day. So less than 3 hours late. And I filed the last report at 12:26 a.m. So it's not me trying to be flagrantly avoiding the rules. It's me working overtime. So I worked really hard to get those reports in. So I believe that there should be no penalty given on this because it's too harsh for the situation, and a warning would suffice. I did get the message last week when the board disallowed 5 reports, 6, I believe. And therefore, I will try really hard not to do that ever again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Duncan?
Yeah, I just, so it was an overtime situation. Is that something that's ongoing with you? It sounds like you had another situation. I mean, how is that going to improve in the future? Because I'm sure you're not going to work any less. How do you not be late in the future? You're, besides just trying really hard, do you have a plan? Anything like that?
One of the reasons I'm late that I was at the municipal board here is that I want to finish my report in full, do a best job as possible, not taking any shortcuts. So I can be on time if I take shortcuts. So I won't send the full report that I do now. I'll do whatever I can to fit into the time. Because I do work a lot of overtime, and in the busy season, it's very, very difficult to meet the deadlines. If the board won't give me leeway, then I'll just have to file whatever I'm able to file.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Mr. Mann, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. First of all, you referred to a bunch of decisions in both the courts and the municipal board. Do you have those decisions available for us to scrutinize to see what they exactly give precedence to before we make our decision, Mr. DuPont?
No, I don't have these decisions. I was personally involved in those decisions at the municipal board. That was in the early 90s, at the beginning when the assessor was asking. They did that for a few years, then they stopped doing that, mainly because they knew the municipal board would not be granting removal of evidence because it was too harsh. So that the problem for having a late report is that the assessor has less time. I don't think there's a problem to the board revision themselves.
Yeah, no, I asked you a question. You already answered the question. You had your opportunity before.
Yeah. So
please stick to answering the questions. Okay, and those decisions that you mentioned that we don't know what they are, did any of them refer to the board revision, or did they stick to referring to their own jurisdictions of the municipal board and the Court of Queen's Bench that it would have been at the time?
Oh, it's affecting their own decision, their own reports were filed for their hearings.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's binding upon you. I'm just saying that they use discretion, and as you can also, so that I'm just giving you as an example that the municipal board has, in my recollection, never given that, even though there was many cases of late reports. Never excluded evidence.
Okay, thank you. We're going to adjourn and have an in-camera session, and we'll determine whether we will or not allow your reports that have been filed late, Mr. DuPont.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I can indicate to the assessor and Mr. DuPont that we've come to a conclusion. There are guidelines that the board revision stipulates must be adhered to for evidence to be filed by a certain date. Unless it's filed by that date, it will not be considered allowed. And we are determined that that's not a strict penalty, it's a penalty that is required. And on that basis, we are not going to allow any of the evidence that has been filed late. I'm asking that our secretary remove those items from the agenda. We're gonna all reload after, and we will not consider those applications, that material. You will be entitled to present live, of course, and viva voce, any evidence you have, Mr. Dubont, on those.
Mr. Chair, to confirm, that's items number 2, 5, and 6.
That's fine then. So I am going to get out of what I've got on my screen. I'll reload after those have been removed. Ms. Carnegie.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and refresh. It should
Thank you.
be.
Okay. So the first item on the agenda then today is 239 or 800 Beverly Street. And Ms. Tang, when you're ready, you can proceed with your evidence.
File number is 23-239. Row number is 1303156910. Address is 800 Beverly Street. The assessment roll year is 2024. Reference date is April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $2,257,000. Classification and liability is 22. Page 2 of my brief. The number of buildings is 1 building on the parcel. The actual year built is 1970, and the effective year built is 1970 as well. Number of suites is 26, and there are 17 outdoor parkings for the property.
So we're going to actually, we're going to make a recommendation on this value after reviewing the applicant's work and the model net operating income. We're actually fine with how the applicant stabilized the net operating income for this property. So we're going to make a recommendation to $1,631,000. And that's using the net operating income of $89,722 and a 5.5 cap. So basically the applicant's NOI and the model cap. I'll pause there so the applicant can respond to our recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. DuPont, is that acceptable to you?
What cap rate did you use on this? My NOI and 5.5 or?
Yeah, the 5.5 in your net operating income.
I'll accept.
Thank you. Before going forward, I guess any questions, Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
And I don't either, so that's great. We got through the first one quickly, and we'll go on to then the second item on the agenda, which is the property at 653 McMillan Avenue. And Ms. Tang, when you're ready, you can proceed.
File number is 23-283. Row number is 12022146000. Address is 653 McMillan Avenue. Roll year is 2024. Reference date is April 1st, 2021. Assessed value is $1,691,000. Classification and liability is 22. Page 2 of my brief. There is one building on the property. There's 3 stories. Effective year built is the same as the actual year built, which is 2020. There are 6 suites on the property, and there are 6 outdoor parking.
So for this one, we're gonna make another recommendation as well. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use the city net operating income, which is 65,096, and we're gonna use a 4.3 cap rate as opposed to the 3.85 as dictated by the model. So that generates a valuation of rounded 1,514,000.
Hey, Mr. DeFont, is that acceptable?
No, it's not.
Okay, we can proceed then. This time you can proceed with your brief then.
Okay, so page 3 of my brief, there's only 1 year of the income expense information received by us. The bottom of the page 3 shows the sales history for the property itself. The property itself was a single dwelling before it was being converted into a multifamily unit. Page 4 of page 4 of my brief shows the picture of the property and the description. Then page 5 and 6 of my brief shows the interior plan for the property itself. And page 7 shows the workup for the property. So the average monthly rent per unit, according to the model, is $1,538.04. And the gross potential rent for the property is $110,739. And the expense rate is 38.64%. And the net operating income is $65,096. And the cap rate, according to the model, is 3.85%, and which gives us a final estimated value of $1,691,000. And page 8 of my brief shows the subject and the comparables. So it shows that the subject rent is about $1,538.04. And we can see that the comparable rent range between $1,315 to $1,958. And the rent are all based on 2020 real year. And page 9 of my brief shows the picture of the comparables. And page 10 of my brief shows the 10 and 11 shows the capitalization rates from the city and the supporting sales. And page 13 of my brief to page 15 of my brief shows the income expense information we received from the owner. And that's the end of my presentation.
Mr. DuPont, any questions?
Yes, on your page 8, where you have comparables, you show the suite mix, you don't show the gross floor area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
There's a large price difference between comparable number 2 at 1,300 to the other 3 comparables. Is that because of the size of the suites? I didn't hear.
I don't have the information available right now.
Your comparables 3 and 4 are for 41 units and 36 units. So those would be full-fledged apartment blocks compared to the subject, which is the small apartment fitting on the regular house lot. So would you agree that those properties would be superior?
I wouldn't say superior, I'd say physically larger.
Would they have more amenities?
They might. They also have a greater deal of people going in and out past here going. So it depends on what sort of living setting the respective.
Ms. Baragas, if you could speak up or speak closer to your mic, we're having difficulty hearing you.
All right. So, okay. So basically it depends on where the tenant would want to live. They want to live in a bigger place where there might be some more amenities and there's some more foot traffic and less privacy, or do they want to live, more private setting? Basically, depends on the opinion of the potential person renting there.
So your comparable number one is 4 units. So it appears that they put 4 units instead of 6 on a house lot. So that would be a larger suite than the subject, would it not?
If the building was the exact same size, then had the same relative amount of common area, that would probably be the case.
And your comparable number 2 is 6 units, same as subject. And that one is at $13.15 rent. 200 rent less than the subjects. Would you agree that's the best comparable of your 4?
From a bedroom and total unit composition standpoint, only, then yeah, that would be the case.
Your cap rates on this one is 3.85, but you're recommending 4.3. And on page 10, the cap rates that you show there, they start 4.8 for low rise A, 28 percentile, to 5.6. And then you have the Colliers, CBRE, Cushman, they start at 5, 5.25 for low rise. So would you agree that your 4.3 is much lower than your own percentile and the brokers?
It is, looking at the chart on page 10, but we do have cap rate sales on page 11 that are calculated below 5% when that's below 4%. My recommendation for 4.3 was based on trying to reconcile 2 factors. One, the building is new. So when I look at the cap rate chart, we've got one new sale at 479, which rounds to 475. Then we have another, and you also have to try and reconcile the size of it as well. Smaller buildings typically have a bigger pool of tenants. So there is, rather not bigger pool of tenants, bigger available potential purchasers given their lower sale price. Therefore, what I did is I went halfway between the model value at 3.25 and the rounded 375 value of 2390 McPhillips. It rounds out to 252,310 a unit, which is what we're seeing for on a per unit basis, larger new builds. I felt that made more sense than the 385 that the model was putting out, where the per unit assessment was much higher and was too high in my opinion.
So your page 11, 2390 McPhillips, that's a large apartment block, 90 suites, built 2015, but that would be full amenities of the newer types of apartments. Would you agree?
From amenities standpoint, yes. I don't think it's in a good location. Tough. You know, the one access road is the same road you get to the Walmart. It's car dealerships around it. It's not a good area in my opinion, but it would have more amenities. It has a heck of a lot less privacy though.
Were you aware also that the buyer increased the rents substantially after purchase by $200 to $400 per suite?
I know that that's been your contention. I've seen in cap rate rebuttal discussions. I'm sure we both have the evidence to be able to talk about that. But we're considering the calculation of the cap rate at 479, the information that was known to the purchaser and vendor prior to the sale.
So that's based on the actual rents, but did you make any calculations as to was lower than CMHC rents and lower than market?
Just the rent in place and compared it to the years prior to the most recent, which is the most recent year prior to the sale, which is what I used. But no, I didn't make any further.
1745 Henderson, would you agree that was a private sale? Share sale?
That one, I didn't put any weight on that. On this one, I don't know too much about this sale. I know another member of our department primarily did the research on that one. That's not what I'm putting my weight on. I'm really considering comparables 1 and 2. So I can't really comment on 1745 because I actually don't know too much.
And comparable 2 is built 1961. So would you say it's not comparable to the subject?
Standpoint, I would agree with you.
Now you have not checked the actual rents of the subject property, I assume, because they're after the reference date. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
Yeah, just one. Why wouldn't you conclude square footage in your comparables?
Not sure why that line didn't get populated.
Okay.
But
Okay, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying that it's from a gross floor area standpoint, which can often be distorted by common areas, hallways, lobbies. So I mean, you can sort of tell, but it's not like an indication in regards to unit size. It's just basically the overall square footage of the building divided by the number of units. So I'm not sure why that line's not there, but I think it ought to be.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, any questions?
Just with respect to the cap rate and specifically the cap rate study at page 11 of your brief, these are cap rates or capitalization rates that were calculated as a result of actual sales, as I understand it?
Yes, that's correct.
And you had alluded to the fact that smaller suites, or you testified to the fact smaller suites of composition or buildings with a smaller suite composition tend to have a lower cap rate. Is there a mathematical correlation there, or is it just the general tendency is for a lower cap rate? For example, is it usually, under 10 suites has a 25 basis points lowering, or is that possible to do?
Yeah, we don't have enough data to actually make that connection. When you actually pull through the whole pool of sales you have and you go through them and you sort out the ones that are associated and you look at the mailers to make sure that they're reasonable or there's no gaps, it's the big list of sales gets short pretty quick. But we have seen that, when the sale price is lower, it allows, non-institutional investors the potential to throw their hat in the ring to purchase. So when there's more demand, more competition for bidding on the property, the price goes up, and over stabilized net operating income, that's going to push the cap.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. So, Mr. Barakis, my questions, I guess, are when I first initially looked at this matter, I too felt that the cap rate that the model chose was low, and I know you've addressed part of that. The other, I did like the NOI because the mailer with interest added basically had essentially the same NOI as the mailer. I mean, the mailer as the model. But I don't see anything in your material that establishes how the model picked the expense ratio of 38.64%. Can you enlighten me on that?
Yeah, that's simply like we get the mailers from the properties. Here, I'll speak up.
Yeah,
We
if you could, speak into the mic because I'm having difficulty hearing you.
I apologize. So we put out a yearly ask for mailers from the preceding year. So what the model does, that data is entered into our model. We're actually doing that now for 2022, and that's connected to the inventory of the property, like how old it is, how many units there are, story height, that kind of thing. So based on the similarity of the amount of, like the expense ratios of similar properties submitted, actual mailers, the model takes that information and then will apply an expense ratio to properties that are characteristically in that category, so to speak.
Okay, so we assume that that's what happened here, and that's how that expense ratio got picked by the model.
That's how it got picked.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you. Okay, Mr. DuPont, you can proceed orally with any material that you wish to put forward to us.
Can I redirect based on the questions that you asked?
Any question that we asked, if you keep it strictly to those questions, you may.
Okay, so Mr. Diamond referred to a questionnaire on your page 13, and the rents are shown 91,200, and page 15 also shows 91,200. So there was, in fact, actual evidence existing prior to the reference date that the rents were 91,000. You would agree with that then?
Well, the mailer on here says September 1st, 2021, and the reference date's April 21. So it's after the fact.
In any way, that Mr. DuPont, I basically caution you that the mailer does show the same NOI as the cities when you add in the interest. There's not a proper deduction in any event. So I think the mailer does show that you were receiving the revenue that the city has in the model and the NOI.
Does the model say 110,739 in rent versus 91,000?
For model rents, or gross potential model rent is 110,739.
So therefore, it's much higher than the questionnaire. You would agree with that?
Questionnaire that occurred after the reference date.
But it doesn't matter when it was completed. It was for a 2020 questionnaire, wasn't it right?
Well,
on top of it says 2020.
No,
Mr. Excuse me, Mr. DuPont, don't ask if it's right because we don't know if it's right. That's what's reported. It might be right. It might not be. That's not the question. It's a questionnaire. It was filled out by the owner and submitted to the city. They're not here to give evidence on whether they prepared it properly or not. We can look at it, but we can't make the determination if it's right or not. We can see what it says.
That's why I'm asking questions about the questionnaire. Okay, I won't ask any more questions then.
Okay, you can go on with your evidence now, then, Mr. DuPont.
First page, you'll see the photo of the building and where
we don't have the page. This evidence has been is not. We don't have it. It was filed late.
Oh, okay, that's one of those that was filed late. Okay. This property is built on the lot, house lot, and so the way to build it is that they have 6 apartments, 2 per floor. They go the whole length of the floor, so they have long and narrow apartments. And this is 6 suites. The parking is 6, so it's 100%. But newer apartments, especially the ones with 50 or 60 suites, the bigger one will have normally close to 150%. So that the market that can attract are those that only have the 1 car. The gross floor area is 1114 per suite. And the suite size, their listings, they have it as 1,005 square feet per suite. And they have 1 bathroom versus others at Paragon built with 2 bathrooms. So the comparables that the Paragon have from their portfolio is that this one, the 1 bath, there's 2 sizes, 1,005 square feet. There's 2 of that size. 1,224 is the rent, and 1,100 square feet is 1,328 is the rent. 813 St. Mary's versus same size versus same rents. 584 Gertrude has 2 baths, and when they have 2 baths, they have higher rents. So they can go up to 1,560 for having 2 baths. 584 Gertrude. This bigger suite, 1,288 square feet and 1,300 square feet. Their rents are 1,363 and 1,525. So for this property, they have only 1 bath. They should be at the lower end. So the features that it has, I'm not adding a premium to our cap rate study. Our cap rate study indicates for 1999 plus to have a cap rate 5.25. And we have the Colliers, CBRE, Cushman, etc. They start at the low rises 5.25. I think that's lowest is 5. The Cushman have a lower cap rate, but it's for high rises. So we use a market rent of 89,954, much lower than the assessor, 110,000, some 39. We had parking at 65 per suite, so we had 45.21 for parking. We use the same vacancy as the assessor, 4.2%. So effective gross income is 90,697. We employ a expense ratio of 40.5%. We have 5 comparables of expense ratios where the assessor applied expense ratios. The average for 2023 is 42.3. If we exclude the 1 property that had a high expense ratio, it's 40.5. So we use 40.5% expense ratio. We applied a cap rate 5.25. The net income that we had is 53,965. Our value is 1,028,000. So I would like to present the cap rate report at this time, but I'm open for questions on this my verbal report on this property.
Okay, Ms. Tang or Mr. Barakis, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. So your potential gross income you used was 89,954. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
How was that figure determined?
I use the December 2022 rents factor back time adjusted.
Okay.
Um,
And the overall valuation of 1,027,000 or 1,028,000 rounded, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So that calculates to a per unit valuation of 171,166. Do you think that's a bit low for a new build on a per unit basis?
No, we value all properties by income approach, both the assessor and Altus. And I don't do a direct comparison approach based on the income that it has and cap rates from the market.
And just for cap rates, for newer builds in seasons past, I've seen Altus present 5%. Here you're at 5.25. Do you think the interest in new build apartments has weakened with a higher cap rate, or can you speak to that?
I didn't hear the question. You said
I know in the
Wait.
past, I've seen Altus represent 5 for newer builds. You're at 5.25 here. Do you believe that the markets for new build apartments has gotten worse?
gotten worse from the previous assessment or from
Yeah,
previous
from the previous talked about in the past.
For 2020 appeals, the assessment department and Altus settle on a cap rate of 5.25 for new bills, 1999 plus. And our official cap rate has been always 5.25 at the board. So I would say it would be extremely rare for Altus to have used 5% for a new bill.
All right, I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, any questions?
I do, with respect to the site-specific rents, I'll refrain from commenting on factoring back, but you are attempting, or you're calculating the effective gross income by using site-specific rents. Is that, or sorry, the gross potential income by site-specific rents. Is that correct?
Yes, site-specific rents factor back. Yes.
Okay. The vacancy rate is a modeled rate. It's not site-specific. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's a CMHC rate, which happens to agree with the assessor in this particular case.
Neither of which are site-specific, right?
Well, we don't have the income for that year, and so that we both agree on the vacancy rate.
Okay. As well as the expense rate, that's not site-specific. That's an average of expense ratios or expense rates in the area.
Yes, so we would need at least 3 to 4 years of history, and we don't have that. And so on new bills, the assessor and Altus have to use an expense ratio from other properties. And so that we had 5 comparables of other new bills where the assessor used an average 40.5%.
Okay. The question I have about cap rates, and I've seen the Altus cap rate study, and the lowest possible cap rate that Altus considers is 5.25%.
That's correct.
Okay. This is a very small building, 6 suites on an old house lot, new build. Would you agree that the cap rates for smaller multifamily rentals on new builds can be smaller, generally speaking, or should be lower, generally speaking, than larger ones because it attracts more investors?
That's an opinion the assessor have had for years. I've never been able to prove it with comparables. So that's just a theory on their part. For 2020, they set all cap rates at 5.25 for small and large apartments, all apartments since 1999, even though they had gone to board of revision with lower cap rates for small properties. They don't have the proof. They never had it in the past, and they still don't have it. It's
So
just a theory.
you don't agree with that lowering of the cap rate?
No, to me, it's not right to value those properties at higher values based on a theory that's not proven.
And I know you use from the Altus cap rate study, I know that bonuses or increase in cap rate is used as a result sometimes of the area in which one finds or one has the subject property. This area, would you characterize it as a good area, good for walking, good for shopping, good for extracurricular activities?
This is a good area. The only time we use a premium for location is usually the north end, same as the assessor, and we use it sometimes for the west end.
Okay.
Certain locations in the west end.
But this is a good area, this one,
Oh yeah, there would be no premium for location on this one.
and no reduction either.
No reduction in cap rate?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, so I've got a question, Mr. Dupont. So basically, as you indicate, you're using site-specific, and you've taken the CMHC vacancy rate. Would you agree, though, if a building is being operated by an owner and they're charging below market rents, they're likely not to have any vacancies?
Yes.
Okay, and if you're going to do on that, use a site-specific NOI, because you're going to, wouldn't it be unfair then to use a vacancy factor as well? Because the reason why they don't have vacancies here is because they have lower rents, which you're asking for when we consider the NOI. But wouldn't it be unfair then to deduct a 4% vacancy factor in that situation?
If you prove that the rents are below market to start with.
Well, I'm not proving anything. I'm asking you to do that.
No, I'm not saying our rents are below market, and they are market. That's what they are, site specific. Site specific are usually at market. It's very rare that they're not. In the case of the cap rate in 2290 McPhillips, they were below market because the purchase increased the rent tremendously after purchase. So on this one, I believe that the rents are market, and a market vacancy should apply.
Okay. And I used the mailer that was submitted by the applicant, and I added back in the interest that they had deducted. And interestingly enough, it came pretty close to the model NOI. How do you come for that?
What you added, interest expense. So
interest expense, correct, but interest expenses are not deductible.
I realize that. So
therefore, wouldn't be paying interest, and so it's unfair to deduct the interest, but maintain the cap rate.
Oh yeah, okay. So you start off by accepting their income of 91,000, and you use the actual expenses. The expenses for 1 year, which is could be 9 months, depending when they first started. But I believe the 1 year is not enough. The repair maintenance is only 1404 for a whole year. Divided by 6 would be $200 per suite. Would be too low. So there's not enough information to stabilize the expenses. And then you would have to make an adjustment to repair maintenance to normalize it, because being very new would be very little to put in there.
Okay, well, that's my questions. Thank you for your answers, and that concludes this matter then. So we can now proceed with the third matter on our agenda today, which is the property at 868 Sturgeon Road. And Ms. Tang or Mr. Braxton, you're ready, you can proceed with your evidence.
File number is 23-370. Roll number is 07560167-100. Address is 868 Sturgeon Road. The rule year is 2024. Reference date is April 1st, 2021. Assessed value is 9,608,000. Classification and liability is 22. Here's my brief. So there is one building on the property. The property is a 3-story high. The actual year build is the same as effective year build, which is 2000. There are 54 suites in the property and 60 indoor parking. Page 3 of my brief shows the past income expense information was received by the department. And the bottom of page 3 shows the description and the picture of the property itself. Page 5 of the brief shows the value generated by the model. So there are 17 one-bedroom apartments, 1-bedroom, and 37 2-bedrooms in the property. The average rent per unit for the month is $1,287.62. The gross potential rent for the property is $834,378. The expense rate is 44.09%, and the net operating income is $451,573. The cap rate to use for the property is 4.7%, which generates a market value of $9,608,000. Page 6 and 7 of my brief shows the comparable rent to subject property. The subject property, as we show, the comparables has an average rent between $1,200 per month to $1,408, which is the subject property falls into the range of the comparable rents. And page 8 and 9 of my brief shows the cap rate evidence. And page 11 to page 14 is the income expense information submitted by the owner. And that concludes my brief.
Thank you. Mr. DuPont, any questions?
So your expenses, they're model driven, so they're not size specific.
That's correct.
I didn't hear.
That's correct.
Oh, okay. And the cap rate you have in this is 4.7%. And the building is built in 2000. It has more suites, so it doesn't have the small number of suites like the 6 suiters. And that's less than your own percentile is 4.8 for the lowest that you have, and lower than the brokers starting at 5.25. So would you say your cap rate is on the low end?
Well, yeah, it's also on the newer end of the scale in terms of the overall inventory in Winnipeg. It's newer, but yes, it is on the lower end of the scale. 2390 McPhillips, we've calculated at 4.7, rounded. This one 4.75, we're at 4.7. We didn't make a change to the cap rate.
So in this is a life lease and you use higher rents than actual. That's correct?
That is correct.
So you use market rents and when you
Model.
right?
Yeah, model.
Model, which is not site specific, and so that's supposedly market rent.
Yeah, based on the information received from all properties, not just, we don't just go to what they submit.
And 2390 McPhillips, you did go with what they submitted. You did not use market rents.
For the calculation of a cap rate, yes, on a site-specific basis to serve as supplementary support for our model cap rates.
That's all questions I have.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, any questions?
Yes, with respect to the model rents that have been submitted, I see that there are 60 indoor parking spots here for 54 suites. On the comparables, I'm assuming Booth Drive has some underground parking. Can you advise about the other comps, whether they have underground parking and whether that would be included in the rental amounts that are quoted?
I don't know whether they have parking or not, but I do know that based on the way the model would assign rents to this row, third from the bottom, average monthly rent per unit, it would not be included. It's not like the potential gross income is divided by the units. When we have the rent roll available, we take those rents and then they're assigned on a 1, 2, 3 bedroom basis.
Okay. So if there was parking, it would show up either on the I&M or on the model as additional income?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thank you. And I don't have any questions. So, Mr. DuPont, you can proceed.
I have to find my report now. Oh, here it is. Okay, so we start the photos in the front. So it's a newer building built in 2002. Then we can go to the income approach page, which is where I guess the cap rates first. So page 14 from our cap rate study, which we didn't go to for the previous properties. I just want to say that the board has that. Page 162 has a reconciliation of apartment cap rates. The assessor has done the calculations of cap rate on the same property as we have. We are very close on most of those properties. The one where we do have a difference is 2390 McPhillips, and there we know that the difference is that there's market rents much higher than actual rents at the time sale. So we give it a cap rate of 5.25, as we do for all properties built after 1999. And page 15 is the income approach. Now this is taken from the financials that we have, which we can go through. They do not charge for parking, so they have zero for parking income. So it's included in their rent. So the 2020, the actual effective gross income is 752,280. We've agreed to the higher EGI that the assessor has at 807,678. So we're applying a higher market rent, the higher market rent than what they actually received. Then we have only 1 year of expenses, and we stabilize based on that. So we use the repair maintenance in this case is 83,009, which is 1,537 per suite. So it's been existing for a while, so you would have a relatively long history of repair maintenance. So the repair maintenance has started to go up to a normal level. So we use actual utilities, actual insurance. So we use a 5% management fee. Professional fees, we drop from 15,000 to 5,000. We use actual office supplies, etc. So we get 385,000 total expenses versus the assessor at 356. So our expenses is site specific. And then we have higher expense than the assessor, so therefore we have a lower net income than the assessor. Our net income is 422,461. And after we apply 5.25 cap rate, it comes to 8,047,000 is the value. The appendix, you'll see that the questionnaires start page 22. They do not show any parking income. And that should not be an issue because we're now agreeing with the assessor's EGI. The page 25, they have some of their financial statements. It shows in red what we've allowed where, how we categorize the expenses. So had some relatively detailed statements there. Page 26, some more of their financial statements and how we categorize each one, whether they went in professional fees, management, miscellaneous, etc. So the repair and maintenance shown on our spreadsheet is one figure, but they had quite a few detailed amounts for each different types of repair and maintenance on their statements. So at 2021, which is after reference date, but we showed the 2020 on our statements. Then we showed the rest of the questionnaire for other years, 2018, etc. And the rent rolls, etc. So that would be my report.
Thank you. Ms. Tang or Mr. Barakas, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, any questions?
I do, just with respect to your NOI calculations. Your net operating income or your effective gross income is very close, or you're accepting what the city had. And then you've got your expenses, 2020, and then a stabilized amount. I'm referring you to the stabilized amount relating to management fees and professional fees. The 2020 expenses were $32,450 approximately, but your stabilized amount is $13,000 higher than that. How do you explain that increase? That would be a 33% increase on your stabilized amount from the actuals.
You're talking about management fee there, right?
And professional fee together.
Oh, okay. Well, I reduced the professional fees by 10,000.
Yeah, and 2.5 to 250% increase on the management fees.
The management fees is a standard allowance of 5%. The assessor and Altus have always agreed when we go to municipal board do a full reports that the management fee should be 5%.
5% of what?
Of DGI.
Okay, 5% of the EGI is only $37,000. Why the 40,384? You're still $3,000 or $4,000 too high on that.
Well, I can do the math. See if it's
Sure.
times 5%. I come to 40,384. 384, 5% of 807,678.
Yeah, I'm looking at the EGI and I'm using 752,280, not 800,000.
Oh yeah, but I did not stabilize it on 52. I stabilized at 807, so we should use the 5% of what
And
we
I was
stabilized it.
Okay, then I was using the wrong number, but still, there's an increase of some $13,000 from the actuals in 2020 to your stabilized amount. Is that just because Altus took over and began charging the 5%, or is that is there a different reason for that?
No, this is self-managed, and I use 5% because that's the standard allowance by both the city. We don't accept actual management fee. A lot of properties are managed by themselves, and some show no management fee whatsoever on their financial statement because they manage by themselves. Some show 6-7%. We always use 5%. That's something that's agreed by both parties whenever we do site specific.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. And I don't have any questions either, so we can now then proceed with the next matter, which is the property at 2431 Portage Avenue. And Ms. Tang, when you're ready, you can proceed.
We take a 5-minute break at this point.
If you like, we can take a 5-minute break. That means we'll then come. Let's break then till 10:20. That'll be 8 minutes. Okay.
Great.
Thank you. We're ready to proceed then on agenda item number 4, which is the next on the docket, and is the property at 2431 Portage Avenue. Ms. Pang, when you're ready, you can proceed.
You're on mute, Ms. Tang. Sorry.
File number is 23-309. Roll number is 0706073400. Address is 2431 Portage Avenue. Roll number is 2024. Reference date is April 1st, 2021. Assessed value is $1,971,000. Cash and liability is 22. Page 2 of my grade. There's one building on the property. The property is 3-story high. The effective year built is 1966, which is 10 years younger than the actual year built. We have notes in our system that there has been renovation done in 2013 for $250,000. There's no permits. It was all interior unit work. Hence it boosts the effective year for 10 years. Page 3 of my grade shows the last year income expense information received fast and the past sales history. The property was a single dwelling before it was being converted into the property was last sold in 2009 and was sold for $970,000. Page 4 of my brief shows the picture of the subject property. Page 5 of my brief shows the workup from the model. So there are 3 1-bedroom and 6 2-bedrooms and 6 3-bedrooms in the property. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,103. Which gives us a gross potential rent of $198,592. The vacancy rate is 3.2% and gives us an effective gross income of $192,237. The expense ratio used is 47.7%, and the net operating income is $100,540. The model cap rate is 5.1%, which gives us a market value of $1,971,000. Page 6 of my brief shows the comparable, and page 7 shows the comparable pictures. And page 8 and 9 of my brief shows page 8 of my brief shows the capitalization rates. And page 10 as well. And page 12 to page 15 of my brief shows the income and expense information for year ending for year 2020. And that's my presentation.
Okay, any questions, Mr. DuPont?
Yes, you mentioned 250,000 and renovations in 2013. Do you have a building permit for that?
There was no permit for that. That was a verbal based on the inspection that was done by a member of our department at the time from the property owner. Notes in our
So can you describe what kind of renovations were done then?
I would say it was interior unit work. Without pictures, I'm not able to specify. I would assume that it was stuff done within the units. That's all the information I have.
Okay, so then you don't have any specifics per se. So it was the photo show that they put in new flooring or new cupboards or anything. Do you know anything more specific?
I don't. I just know from looking at. I mean, it looks like they have some newer windows based on the pictures on page 4. But I mean, I wasn't the person who went there, so I can't. I would just be speculating. I don't want to do that.
So should the newer windows change the effective year of a property? Isn't that fairly normal that they have to change their windows over time?
Yeah. I mean, typically the note, which of course Mr. we don't have access to, based on my abbreviated note, member of staff said there were renovations in 2013. The property owner said it was 250,000. There weren't any permits. It was all interior unit work. So I'm assuming there was some sort of refresh, but I don't have any pictures that I can show. I tried to go online quickly before this one, but I didn't see any advertisements with pictures online that I could speak to verbally right now. So that's the best answer I can give you in regards to why there is a slight bump in the effective age.
The rents they charge in that place is actually lower than your rents. So would you agree that the renovations did not increase the rents by a lot? That it's not reflected in the rent, whatever renovations they did?
Yeah, when I reviewed this one, and I've seen we're not too far apart. The actual rents are lower. The expenses are lower as well. So when you look at the net operating income and you look at the actuals, they are reporting a net operating income. You see a 53,374. So that also includes 47,000 of mortgage interest. So if you were to, add that back into the net operating income, you're getting pretty close to the 100,000 mark, and we're at 100,540 on our model. So yeah, the income's too high, but the expenses they're reporting are lower. So we kind of end up at the same spot down a different road.
Okay, so your page 7, your rent comparables, so it shows a subject as the window air conditioners. There's only 3 in the front, so I guess the east side does not have windows air conditioners. Do you know whether they're owned by the tenants or the landlord?
I do not.
Now, your third comparable, 2440 Portage, has balconies, so you would agree that this is superior property?
Based on the fact that it has balconies,
Yes.
I think I would need more information to make that sort of statement.
And your page 6, you don't show any gross floor area for any of the suites. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's there. It ought to be. Ultimately, look at the most recent mailer. We add the mortgage interest back in. It's coming out to like 100,000. We're at 100,000. I didn't see any one review to make a change to the net operating income.
The comparables you have on your page 6 are lower than the subject by 50 to $150. So would you say your comparables don't help prove your case on rents?
Yeah, and I'm very forthright in saying that I think the model rent is a bit too high, but I think our ultimately net operating income is okay when you factor in the reported expenses.
Okay, so you would agree to use our effective gross income then?
No,
Okay, you're just saying yours is too high.
I'm saying ours is too high, but then we're saying our expenses are too high. Ultimately, net operating income is okay. So I'm not going to agree to your income and then have you try to prove your expenses to come out with a net operating income that's too low.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
I imagine it's just a typo, but comparable number 2, what is the average monthly rent?
Well, if it's $127, they're probably not in business any longer. I don't know. But again, just looking at it from a reported net operating income standpoint compared to the model, I think we're okay.
Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mann, any questions?
Oh, I don't. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that too, Mr. Brackus, that if you added back the interest in, we got pretty well, a little bit higher actually than the model NOI. But I guess what I'm questioning here is I look at all your comparables, I see none of them have a suite mix with 3 bedrooms. Would that increase the average monthly rent per unit because there's 3 bedrooms here and all your comparables have at most 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms?
Yeah, I mean, that's the model. That's the model would take that into consideration, because all else being the same, the 3 bedroom is going to typically command a higher rent. That's probably why the average monthly rent assigned by the model is sitting a bit above the comparable.
Okay, and it's borne out by the actual mailer. So, okay, thank you. That's my questions. Mr. DuPont, you can proceed with your evidence.
Sure. So first page, we see the photo, which is similar to what the assessor has. We can go to the cap rate section. So our cap rates, page 14, for 46 to 59, it's a 5.75. From 1960 to 1998 is 5.5. The assessor says it's 1966 effective. Now, we believe the effective age is very subjective. the rents that they're getting on a site specific are not that high. Especially when you put the fact that they have 3 bedrooms in there. There's some 3-bedroom units. So the actual rents are not that high. So based on their own rents, I don't think it warrants an effective age at 10 years more. The parking is 60%, and the effective age may not be warranted. And so therefore we use a 0.25% premium over 1966, or else if we say it's in the 46 to 59 range, it'd be 5 3/4 anyways. So we use a cap rate 5 3/4. The new income approach, page 16. Now, if we go to the bottom line, line 33, the net operating income for the last year is 100,000, the 921. The year before is only 27,000. So therefore, that's why we stabilize. So we should not be using the 1 year only. And 2017 was 68,000 overall. So we should go to the stabilization. So line 3, we go with the actual potential income. 172,800, and that's 960 per suite, which is less than the assessor's 1103. And we use less vacancy than the assessor. We use 1.7 because it has 0% vacancy in 2020. They had some higher vacancy in 2017, 6%, and they were able to bring it down. Nevertheless, even though it may have 0% vacancy, we always have to use a market vacancy. So we use less vacancy factors than the assessor. So we added the laundry at actual and the parking at actual also. So our AGI is 173,702 versus the assessor 192. So we're about 20,000 off there. Insurance, we stabilized at actual. Management fee was stabilized at 5%, which is less than actual, slightly less, not a big thing. Office and supplies, we stabilized at 2-year average, 2019, 2020. Advertising, we use I guess the average of the 3 years. Hydro and water, we use the last 2 years as normal. Waste and snow, we use the average of the 2 years, which is a small amount. Repair maintenance, that's where it's quite erratic. It went from 30,000 to 90,000, then the next year 21. So what we stabilized at is the 2 years excluding the high year, 25,000. So which is 4,000 higher than 2020, but lower than the other 2 years. So repair maintenance, usually we go for long term because they can be erratic. Usually we go 3 years to 5 years if we can. So this time we did 2 years. Caretaker, I used the 40 per suite. It's on the low side. So we use 7,200, then we use the actual taxes. So the expenses we come to is 84,212, which is lower than the assessor 91,000. So Matt has referred to that, but we're only 7,000 lower, whereas the rents are 20,000 lower. So that our NOI is 11,000 lower than the assessor. We apply 5.5%. Oh, it says 5.5 and previously has 5.75. So I forgot to change the cap rate. Let me check the math. 89,490 divided by 0.575. So at 5.75, it would be 1,556,000. Then the appendix, we have all the financial statements, etc. I don't think we need to go there. So that would be my submission.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Tang or Mr. Barakas?
Yeah, just on your workup on page 16, they spent 90,000 in 2019, which is about 6,000 per unit. Do you have any details or information in regards to what that extra work entailed?
It's shown on page, I don't know what my pages are, page 30. Yeah, bottom right, page 30. It just says maintenance repairs 90,856. It's your questionnaire, so they don't have a breakdown. They just fill in the line that you asked for.
Would you agree that that level of repair and maintenance is atypical and may include capital expenditure?
Well, it may not. I mean, some capital expenditures don't increase the value. If they put in a new roof, it does not increase the value. We just exclude it. It's a roof, so it does not change. So if some capital improvements, it's renovations for the suites, full change of suites, you would see the change in rents, and there was very little change in rents from 2019 to 2020. So I believe it is just erratic repair maintenance, whereas some owners, managers will try to keep the repair maintenance on a fairly even footing every year. These owners are going on the erratic route.
Okay. For your cap rate, did you use 5.5, or did you put a premium on it to 5.75?
I did put a premium of 0.25% because of its age and the fact that it had low parking. That I've shown that in the previous page. I forgot to change the cap rate on page 16. So page 16 shows 5.5, but I'm changing it to 5.75, and the value is 1,556.
Is there a waiting list to get into this property?
Questionnaires don't ask that.
Okay. So when you're coming up with your premiums, you ever weigh factors towards the positive, like the fact that this place operates basically at no vacancy, when deciding whether or not to apply a premium?
I believe vacancy is not a factor for a cap rate unless it's chronic vacancy for a very long time. The assessor does not give a cap rate premium when there's high vacancy. So therefore, you should not be putting it to give a lower cap rate when it has low vacancy.
So then I'm just curious, why would you apply a premium for the amount of parking when that's already captured under the income side of the coin? If you're not including vacancy as a positive, why would you include lower parking as a negative? I don't.
Well, cap rate is for a long term. So what's the value of your investment over a long terms and principal of anticipation? So this property will always have this negative factor of 60% parking. So therefore, it will affect the rents. It will affect maybe the vacancy in the future. It's a negative factor. So that's structurally, that's how it's built. And it's something we have to take into consideration because it follows the property for the life of the property.
And that would follow the income approach from a income standpoint. So my concern is that if you're being accounted for already in the income side for parking, why would we then double dip and then add it as a factor to add a premium to parking?
It's not double dipping. You have different cap rate for the different age groups. So every factor is always considered the income approach. Yet the city has different cap rates for different age groups. So it's not double dipping. It's the same thing. We recognize certain factors that affect the property on a long-term basis. Small suites would affect the property for all times. Low parking affect the property for a long term, and that is considered a cap rate factor.
But not like chronic long-term below market vacancy. You don't go the other way. You only add premiums. You never add deductions to the cap rate for positive attributes.
I'm saying we don't adjust cap rate for low vacancy or high vacancy, neither one. So that the way you're trying to dispute, you would do it one way only. Unless you're telling me that when there's a high vacancy, if you're worth 6% vacancy, would you give it a lower, a higher cap rate?
Again, I wouldn't, if it had above average parking, I wouldn't give it a lower cap rate. I just think it's all captured. I just don't want to double dip. Anyway, your caretaking, you boosted it beyond the actual reported. Can you maybe elaborate a bit more on why you did that?
It's owner managed, so quite often some of these smaller properties may undercharge the caretaking because they do a lot of the caretaking work themselves. So it's it's quite low. And I use from other properties, I know it's $40 per suite would be a minimum. So on some properties where we have had low cap rate, low caretaking or no caretaking because they were doing their own, we go with the market about the 40 per suite minimum. And you have 1 year at zero. The 2019 has zero caretaking, so it shows that they're not employing a caretaker as normal.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Madden, any questions?
I do. Mr. Dupont, have you inspected this property?
No, I have not.
Okay, so just for the effective age where you have applied a negative premium to increase the cap rate, you say it may not be warranted as it moves the subject into another category. Without inspection, how do you know that it may or may not be warranted? Can you just explain the thinking there?
When the assessor applies an effective age, it's a very subjective basis. They've never been able to come up with a formula or a way to measure that. One way would be the rents. So that if the 1966 building would have $1,100 rent and this property was $1,200, you would say, hey, that supports the fact you should have a higher effective age, and which affects the cap rate. But this is the reverse. They have lower rents than the assessor's rent. So its own rents indicate that they did not improve the property to the point that they would have rents equal to a 1966.
Okay, so you're basing that effective age determination on the rents that are being set by the owners. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say that the actual rent they're getting, to me, disproves the effective age.
Okay, but going back to your arguments and Altus's arguments with respect to the Lady Joyce apartments, they had lower rents, which you say artificially reduced the cap rate until market rents were applied. Are you saying that's a factor here? So these rents should be noted as higher to equate to the rents that could be obtained?
Oh, in the case of Lady Joyce, the purchaser increased the rents right after purchase by $200 to $400 per suite. So they were below market. And this property, I'm saying the rents that they're getting are at market. That's what they're getting on a site-specific basis. So the two different situations.
Okay, but factoring in a cap rate just based on the rents is not something that shows up typically in a cap rate calculation. Is that correct?
I'm not sure of your question.
The cap rate, the net operating income divided by the sale price. That's the mathematical calculation for a cap rate, right?
That's correct, yes.
To say that the rents may or may not be at market, below market, or above market is not going to factor into an arbitrary increase in cap rates, is it?
No, when whatever you stabilize your rents at will come up to a cap rate when you're determining a cap rate from the market. In this case, the rents that I'm using site-specific rents. I'm just saying the effective age from those rents indicate that the effective age is not warranted.
Okay. So you have a challenge, or you're disputing the effective age as noted by the city, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because the effective age is subjective and can't particularly be confirmed one way or another, absent an inspection, right?
Well, even if you have an inspection and you compare it to other properties, you have to inspect other properties also to get a proper feel. I mean, you can go say well, by experience, etc., or you may see certain things. But the rents they are able to command on the market, if you had an effective age, some properties have been totally renovated. We know they have huge rent increases, $400 or $500 per suite. This has not happened. Maybe in 2013 they had some rent increase, and now we have rents that are below the assessor's rent for the age group 1966.
Okay, but Altus even uses effective year built. Your table on page 14 talks about effective year built, not actual year built. That's effective year built.
Oh, the effective year built is not ours. It's what the city has. I'm showing what the city has, and I'm saying it may not be warranted.
Well,
So,
your chart on page 14, effective year built, 1960 to 1979, number of stories 6 plus 5.5%. 1960 to 19.
yeah, okay, okay. On top of the line, yes, okay, yeah. So when we agree to effective year built, these are the cap rates that we use. I'm just saying for the subject, it's built 1956, and it's just at the borderline for the two age categories. So we get the two age categories, and the assessor by a subjective call have moved it to a different category that then decreases the cap rate.
Okay. Location, does that figure into a calculation of a cap rate for positive and negative factors?
Only for negatives. I believe the assessor's cap rate, same as Collier's, CBRE, although market reports do not have a different cap rate for different areas of the city. They all say 5 to 6% or 5% for all areas. And the only area or location that has a different cap rate is the North End and sometimes the West End for being inferior.
So a superior location in your calculation of cap rates wouldn't make up for negative factors such as a reduction in parking?
No, there's no such thing as a superior location factor used by the assessor or the marketplace.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. So, Mr. DuPont, I guess I'm taking up to Mr. Mann did delve into some questions I want to ask, and they hadn't been fully reviewed. So this location, it's on Portage Avenue on the west side, is that correct?
Yes.
On the south side.
Oh, of the street.
Yeah.
That's the north side of the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just put them out.
in proximity to the Assiniboine River behind.
To the what?
The Assiniboine River is not far to the south, correct?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. It's further to the south. So it's not on the river, no.
No, not on the river, but it's a nice area for walking around and enjoying summer evenings if you inclined to do so.
I would say if you want to compare locations, I would say this is inferior to the newer properties and newer locations. The Plessis area, but there's a whole bunch of apartments being built, and the Fort Garry and the new apartments are being built. This is a very old area, very old properties. So there would be an inferior area to some other areas in the city. This is an old area.
I guess inferior is subjective, though. If it's not a high crime area, or in any event, to some people, if somebody working in Polo Park, for instance, that might be a good area to live because they could walk to work. Do you agree?
I don't think being close to Polo Park would have any bearing on this whatsoever. You got all along St. Mary's is nice, all along Pembina is nice, all along Henderson is nice. Those are all big streets. But the hot spots are where the new apartments are being built. Plessis are hot spots, and some of the further south in Fort Garry, those are hot spots. The Linden Ridge area, Linden Woods, etc.
Okay, I'm not asking that, but the question I had is somebody working at Polo Park would find this maybe as a desirable location. Would you agree?
No, I don't think it has any bearing whatsoever with Polo Park.
Okay.
Polo
So hang
Park
on.
was
That makes us to the next question then, because you're indicating that you feel that the parking is a minus, and somebody who working in Polo Park who walks to work would need parking. Would you agree with that?
Somebody that walks or takes a bus. Yeah, it'd be a limited market. If you have less parking, you're limiting yourself to people that use a bus only, that do not have cars, and so that you're on the low end of the rentable scale of the quality of tenants by doing so. So that if you want to renovate a property and you have 100 to 150% parking, then it's a better choice to renovate those properties because you can get a higher rent because you can attract people that have cars.
Hey, this is taking a long time, Mr. Dupont, because you don't really answer the question. You go into a lot of other things. And when I ask a question, it'd be nice. And you do the same thing with Mr. Mann. You just keep on going. If you could just answer the question, it would get us along much quicker and not tell us about a lot of things we're not asking. You've already given your evidence. So I'd appreciate if you could stick to answering the questions and we'll get there faster. Okay?
Sure.
Okay. So somebody walking, it's on a good bus route. You've indicated that, and I agree. And there's a lot of employment around Polo Park. So it might be a desirable question for some tenants, not all, but there's quite a few tenants who might find that as a desirable question, location who don't need parking. Would you agree?
There will always be some market for properties with low parking, and it would be for lower quality tenants, for people that do not have cars, do not have places, do not need parking. I think I've answered that, and
Okay.
low parking is a negative feature no matter what.
Okay. The next question I have is, because this is something, you did indicate that the comparables didn't show the rent that the city was stipulating, but it's true, would you agree, that none of the comparables had 3-bedroom units in them? And this one has 6, which is basically the same as it has 2-bedroom, and there's only 3 1-bedrooms. So it's a good suite mix. Would you agree?
That part's good, yeah, good suite mix.
And that would increase the rent over and above maybe the comparables. Would you agree with that?
That factor alone, yes.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to 813 St. Mary's Road, and that's item number 5. Okay, when you're ready, you can proceed.
File number is 23-285. Row number is 080018750000. Address is 813 St. Mary's Road. Row year is 2024. Reference date is April 1st, 2021. Assessed value is 1,859,000. Class and liability is 22. Page 2 of my brief. There is one building on the property. The property is a 3-story high. It was built in 2020, so the effective year built and the actual year built is the same. There are 6 suites in the building and 6 outdoor parking spots. The property was a single dwelling before it was being converted into a multifamily built property.
And gonna make a recommendation on this one. So there's 2 factors that are gonna move. The first one that's gonna move is the potential rent. So the potential rent I'm adjusting to 99,000, and that's based on an average monthly rent of 1,375. That rent was obtained by looking at a mailer which indicated that there was a unit. The first unit was rented for that amount actually on April 1st, 2021. Then with 3.2% vacancy, the vacancy is 3,168, which creates an effective gross income of 95,832, with a model expense ratio of 38.33, expenses 36,732, net operating income 59,099. And I'm also amending the cap rate to 4.3 as I did for my other smaller build recommendation to generate 1,374,000 rounded.
Okay, Mr. DuPont, is that acceptable?
No, it's not.
Okay, proceed then with your evidence, Ms. Tang.
So page 6, 7, and 8 shows the comparable rent for the subject property. And page 9, 10 is the evidence for the cap rates. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions, Mr. DuPont?
Would you agree that your rents that you're recommending are still higher than actual rents?
Well, I submitted the mailer where I got the 375 rent from in the form of rebuttal, so we'll see that information signed prior to the reference if that isn't clear.
The vacancy that you have is 3.2%. Would you agree that the Shimichi vacancy is 4.2% for properties built up to 2005?
I do not have that information within my brief.
You had another property here today where you're using 4.2% and now you're using 3.2. Do you know why? Sometimes you use 4.2 and sometimes 3.2.
I believe the model is area dependent. So different areas get different vacancy rates. I believe that's the case.
That's all questions I have.
Okay, Mr. Mann, any questions?
No, I don't think I do. Thank you. No questions.
Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I don't either. Thank you. Mr. DuPont, you can proceed with your evidence.
I guess I'll go verbal because that's one of the late reports that I had. Um,
We still have, hang on, okay, we still have, that, uh,
I think that's
Mr.
right.
Chair, yeah,
Marty.
that's rebuttal. Okay, go ahead, certainly.
uh, go ahead with what the written report.
Well, no, go ahead with your evidence and you can, do your rebuttal later if you so inclined.
Okay. The subject is built on a house lot, so that's long and narrow suites. The photos would indicate they have a stucco exterior, except for the front that has some wood siding, so it's not as nice as some of the newer apartments where the large apartments are. So the income approach for our cap rate, we use 5.25, which is from our cap rate study for 1999 plus. The year built is 2020, but we don't have rents as of April 1st, 2021. We use the actual rents factored back for time. So we got 93,617 in rent compared to the assessor's recommendation, 99,000. So we're 5,000 less in rent. We use 4.2% vacancy, which is a Shimichi vacancy for 2005 plus. Instead of the assessor at 3.2%. The rents that we use, we factor back included parking. So our NOI is 89,685. So we're about 6,000 less than the assessor at that point in time. We use 40.5% expense ratio instead of 38.33 that the assessor had. So we're relatively close there. So our net income is 53,363. When we apply a 5.25 cap rate, we get a value of 1,000,016. Appendix, we have some photos. I don't know if the assessor has some photos, but it does show that it's newer, but it's a relatively plain material. And very long corridors from the front to back. So that's a lot of wasted space there because of the way it's built. They have to have the long corridors. And this is one of those also that has only one bath versus some of the others built on these housing lots that have two baths. So because they have the one bath, they have lower rents, lower market rents than some other properties, the same vintage. And because it's so long and narrow like that, there's no common area or features you would have in larger apartment blocks. Parking is at 100%. There again, that would be relatively low for a new property if you compare it to a newer property. If you compare it to other small six-story, six-suite apartments, that would be normal, but not if you compare it to the units with more apartments with more units. That's my submission.
Thank you. Mr. Barakas or Ms. Tang, any questions?
Yeah. So you use a 5.25 cap rate on this based on its age. Would that be fair to say?
Based on its age?
Yeah.
Yes.
So just looking at your cap rate table, 1 to 5, if this building was built in 1965, would it get a 5.5 cap?
Yes.
Do you think that maybe a bigger adjustment should be made given what would be 60-year difference in age built, year built might be warranted?
No, the CBRE, Cushman Collier's cap rate is started at 5%. So then their cap rates are like for low rise, you go 5.25 to 5.75 for low rise A. Yeah, so the CBRE starts 5.25 to 5.75. Low rise B goes up to 6, so 5.5 to 6. They have only a half percent difference in cap rates for the whole range that they have. So I don't think we can extrapolate a cap rate for a 1999 plus. My comparing to others, everything should be in line. It should be a gradual scale, and this is a gradual scale also.
Okay, and then with your valuation, it comes up to about 169,000 per unit. I think that might be low, given it's year built.
We go by income approach. We don't go by direct sales, and direct sales is always based on different factors involved and different physical attributes, and whether you got balconies or other amenities, etc. And that's why we, over the years, the boards and the assessor have always gone with income approach. A direct comparison is not an approach used with apartments normally.
Okay, those are my questions. I do want to put in my just rebuttal to the rents after, but I'll let you guys ask your questions. That's where we're at.
Okay, we'll have questions, but before doing so, I don't think I wrote something down carefully. I must have made a mistake. Mr. Brackus, what was your revised NOI for your recommendation?
Oh, okay, it's 59.
59.
59,099. I did submit it after 5 yesterday, but I don't think we're letting stuff in past the due date to make it kind of clear.
Okay, I wrong and wrote it down wrong. So now that I got that, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So Ms. Duncan, do you have any questions of Mr. DuPont?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't have any questions either. So thank you. Okay. And now we have some rebuttal, so we can proceed with the rebuttal. Mr. Baracus, you can go first.
Yeah, it's just very simple. It's just in regards to the rents in place. I looked through the mailers. This mailer is from the end of 2021, but you can see the circled and highlighted the rent that was in place, lease start, April 1st, 2021. That's our reference date, 1375. The other ones, lease start date occur after the reference date, hence they're whited out. They're not included. So we have one rent in place, 1375. That's why I made the change in regards to the potential gross income. Just clearing up my source document there.
Mr. Chair, I was distributing that to Mr. DuPont, so he hasn't had a chance to look at it quite yet. So we have to wait till.
Okay.
So, Mr. DuPont, have you received it yet?
That was part of his recommendation, which I have.
Yes, so this was an additional rebuttal document that I just sent you by email.
Oh, the additional one. Okay. Oh, here, I see it. Okay, I see it.
Okay, thank you.
My questions for you is that the subject property has 2 suite sizes. One is 1,005 square feet, and the other one is 1,100 square feet. And that 1375, do you know which one it is? One of the small suites or one of the large suites?
I do not.
Okay, that's all questions I have.
Okay, any questions, Ms. Duncan,
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Mann?
Cool, thank you. No
And
questions.
I don't either, so thank you. So now then we can proceed with the next matter, which is 909 Grosvenor Avenue, item number 6. And when you're ready, Ms. Tang, you can proceed.
File number is 23-396. Roll number is 12022990000. Address is 909 Grosvenor Avenue. Roll year is 2024. Reference date is April 1st, 2021. Assessed value is $1,653,000. Class and liability is 22. There is one building on the parcel. The building is a 3-story high. The building was built in 2021. There are 6 suites in the building, and I think there will be 6 outdoor parking. This is a typo. The property was a single dwelling before it was being converted into a multifamily unit.
Okay, so another one of these, another rec. I think the cap rate again is too low, 385. Keeping her consistent today, using the modeled net operating income and a 4.3 cap rate generates 1,480,000 rounded.
And what is the NOI you're using?
Oh, so that would be the modeled NOI. So that is 63,655.
Okay, and you're then capping it at 4.2%.
4.3.
4.3, okay. Thank you. Is that acceptable, Mr. DuPont?
No, it's not.
Okay, Ms. Tang, you can proceed.
So page 6 and 7 is the information for the comparable rent. And page 8 is the cap rate information. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, Mr. DuPont, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Mann, any questions?
I do. I'm just looking at the your comparables at page 6, your comparable rents. 889 Grosvenor, that's got to be very close to 909 Grosvenor, either next door or a couple doors down. Is that right? You're subject in the comp 4.
Yeah, that's very close address-wise for sure.
In fact, given the subject suites, all 2-bedroom, that looks to me like it's likely one of those renovated houses or infill lot houses as well. Is that a very similar building?
There's pictures on, there's a picture of it on page 7. And then I'll go back and forth to page 3 of our brief to compare the suitability of how similar they are. I know when you're looking at it from a gross floor area standpoint, in which I don't put the most amount of weight on, but it is most similar in terms of that on a per unit basis and an overall basis. So, I mean, we don't just, the model doesn't just use one sale. It uses.
I get that. I understand that. But I'm looking at the difference in price for the same gross square footage, roughly the same year build, roughly the same location, almost identically the same location, $500 average monthly rent more for comp 4.
Mm-hmm. It seems quite a bit. I think the rent we have is suitable. Looking at like, this is one of these ones where I don't think when we were putting the building on, we didn't hear back from the owner in terms of their rents.
Right.
That put on the model rate. So that's pretty much all I can say about that.
Okay, thank you. That I just was curious about that. It seemed like an anomaly, but thank you. That answers my question. Sorry, I don't have any more questions. Thanks.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. I'm sorry. You know what? I lost track. Did I ask you, Michelle, if you had any questions?
No, not yet. So,
Okay.
do you have any mailers for this property?
No, we do not. It's a newer build, and we don't have anything under request for income information subsequently, but they're not like having any compliance issues. We don't have income information on these guys.
Okay, I think that was it. Thank you.
Okay, I guess the only question I have, since really that was your recommendation, how did you determine that a 4.3 cap rate was appropriate?
Yeah, so again, same, just circling back to the first one on McMillan, the other 6-unit one, same as we just did on 813 St. Mary's. Our cap rates, which doesn't fit in this particular brief. The first two, 2390 McPhillips, we've got 4.75 rounded. And then we've got a smaller one on St. Mary's that sold for 3.6. This one's 3.85. I think it's too low, especially when you look at it on a per sale price per unit basis. I do think that trying to recognize the fact that it is smaller, but also the cap rate information we have for a newer build at around 4 3/4. I went down the middle with that to try and reconcile both those factors. And so my recommendation for this one comes out to 246 per unit, which is what we're seeing in terms of, assessment per unit for other newer, larger buildings. So it just seems like the modeled cap rate was too low, in my opinion, just reconciling the market research that I've done myself. So that's why I made the adjustments to that.
Okay, thank you. That's my question. So that, Mr. DuPont, you can proceed now with your evidence.
Okay, so our main difference is in the cap rate. I used the rents after reference year, factored them back. I added parking and vacancy, and my EGI is 101,000. The assessor is 103,000. So we're only 2,000 apart. So I accept the assessor's effective gross income, which is very close to the factor back rents. The expenses at 38.66, we use 40.5 from 5 other properties where the assessor used 40.5. That's a small difference there again. So our NOI is 61,746 versus the assessor 63,655. So we're very close on the NOI. So the main difference would be in the cap rate. We use 5.25 cap rate. And so we arrive at a value of 1,176,000. And that's the same argument that we had on cap rates as what we've had before. So that would be my report.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Barakis?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, any questions?
No, I've answered or asked all the ones I want on that particular cap rate. Thanks.
Okay, I think I've done so too, so thank you. So that's great. We can now proceed with the last item on the agenda, which is the property at 360 Osborne Street. And you're ready, Ms. Tang, you can go ahead.
File number is
Okay.
File number is 23-268. Row number is 120200120000. Address is 360 Osborne Street. Row year is 2024. Reference date is April 1st, 2021. Assessed value is $9,023,000. Class and liability is 40S. There is one building on the property. The building is a 7-story high. The effective year built is the same as the actual year built, which is 1988. There are 72 suites in the building, and there are 52 outdoor parking.
All right, so again, last one, we're gonna put a rec on this one. Reviewing this property and some of the discussions that we've had in regards to prior years, I'm gonna make a recommendation, applicant's net operating income and cap rate. So that generates the indicated market value of rounded 7,803,000. So I don't think we're in disagreement anymore.
I agree with that.
So that was 7,803,000.
Yep.
Okay, and that's using the NOI and the cap rate of the.
Yeah, we've had discussions on this property about previous years, and quite simply, the model expenses. You can see historically, the current model expenses don't capture what they're actually dealing with. So we are in agreement now. So we're ending on a good note.
Okay, any questions, Ms. Duncan?
No questions. Thank you.
No, and I have no questions. Thank you.
And I don't either, so that's so that means then that all matters that we are hearing today have been dealt with, and we'll then be adjourning this hearing. We will be providing our decisions in very short order. Thank you both for your participation, and have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.